So for this video, we're going to be doing the final gameplay change, which is going to be a simple section that will change the view target over to a camera that's within the world. And the reason we're doing this is that it's kind of nice to have the camera kind of looking at the rest of the scene with you in it and the player just playing a victory animation. So to do this, I'm going to go to my content browser and I'm going to open up my game mode. Now the reason I'm doing this is I want to set up a function so that when we increment waves, if we're actually over the final wave index, we no longer spawn a new wave, but instead what we do is we play the end game scenario. So I'm going to need an additional check, which is going to be just here. So I'm going to move these across. And this additional check is simply going to say, there we go. If the waves, if the last index is less than the current wave index, so if the last index is less than the wave index, that means that we've now gone beyond the scope of this array. So if that is false, we continue doing what we were doing. So if the last index is equal to or greater than the wave index, just keep doing what we're doing. However, if this is true, I'm going to create a custom event that is going to be called endgame. So if this is true, I'm just going to call endgame. Plug this in here and I'll try and neaten this up just a little bit. And in the endgame function, I'm going to now have a binding set up to simply change the camera target on the character themselves. So to do this, I'm going to get my endgame function, and off of this, I'm going to get the current player controller. And now there's a nice little function here that I can do, which if I drag in, I can actually type in blend, and you'll see that we have set view target with blend. Now setting the view target with blend just looks for a new camera that you want to have as the view target, how long it takes to get there, and whether you want to lock the outgoing or not, which I strongly recommend. So I'm going to set the blend time to be 4 seconds. I'm going to lock the outgoing, which means if the camera that you're moving away from is shifting, it doesn't try and match up with that and try and be somewhere in between. Believe me when I say this is usually the safest option, is to lock the outgoing camera. Now the other thing that I'm going to want to do here is I need to actually give it something to look at. So what I would strongly recommend doing is adding a get all actors of class and just looking for any camera in the game that we can adhere to. Now that we've got every camera in the game, I'm going to simply get a random one of these. So I'm going to get the length, and I'm going to type random, and then I'm going to get the random camera that's been selected, compile, and now within the map, if I want to, I can simply add in a camera actor from the modes panel. So I'm going to put a couple of these into the map at different locations. This one can be here. And now, if I were to play the game, I would jump all the way through to add the new waves. Now, the problem is that there's a lot of waves right now for me to test with, so I'm just going to delete all of my waves except the first, and save. And now if we test this out, when the game finishes, you'll see that we'll get a camera that will move over to wherever we chose for it to be. So the final thing there is simply going to be adding in on this. We want to tell the players to play an animation, and I'm just going to hook that up with a delegate. So once again, I'm going to get this and make an event dispatcher, and I'm going to call this endgame. Oops. end game dispatch. I'm going to call this, compile, save, and from here, if I were to go to my my player classes, so I'm going to go to my content browser, I'm going to open up KG Character Base. Now from here, what I'm going to do is go to my event graph, and on begin play, I'm going to get the game mode. I'm going to cast to our game mode. I'm going to bind to the end game dispatcher that we created. I'm going to create a custom event off of this that's just going to be called endgame dance. And this is going to be a montage. So I'm going to go to my content browser, assets, night, and you see that we have an animation called victory, which currently looks like this. So it's just a victory dance up and down. So I know this goes for quite a while, it's 5 seconds worth. So I'm going to set this to be a quick, simple montage that I'll play on the character. So in my content browser, I'm going to right click, create, and then montage. I'm happy to leave it as being called victory montage. So from in here, I'm going to go to my character base, and my endgame dance is simply going to be set this up to play montage. The montage is going to be the victory montage. And this means that every player that's currently alive when this goes off will be there. The other thing that I'm going to do, just in case, is disable movement. So that will now disable the movement and then play the anim montage. So that's our standard endgame dance, and this means that when we die, if we call endgame, it's actually going to do it for both teams. So I've got that in there. What I'm going to do is go to my game mode, and since that's all being called, this will currently work, but I do want to have a quick thing in there so that if the player ever dies, that I've set it up to be playing endgame for them as well. So what we need to do here is we're going to go to our character base, and we're going to create a simple extra piece of functionality that is going to see if when someone dies, if that person dying is the player. If that is the player, it's going to report back to the game mode, endgame. So in character base, I'm going to go to here, and just before I destroy everything, in fact I'm going to do it before the delay, that way as we die we'll move away and we'll see the player on the ground. I'm going to do a branch, which is going to be simply getting the controller, and I'm going to check if the controller that we're getting is a player controller, and if it is a player controller, so if that's true, we're going to do an extra thing. If it's false, we'll do what we've always done. But if it's true, I'm going to call endgame on the game mode. So I need to get a reference to the game mode. Since we can't get up to this without having done the earlier cast, I'm simply going to do a pure cast. Cast to KG game mode, convert to pure. And from here, I'm simply going to say, if this is going to there, we're going to call end game. Compile, save. So if it is a player, we'll do that. And then in my game mode, after I've done this set target with blend, I'm going to have a delay that is 6 seconds, at which point, for the time being, I'm happy to actually just I'm happy to restart the level itself. So just reload everything. To do that, the quickest way is actually going to be for me to execute console command. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to type in restart level. Now, in a standard game, what you would want to do is to actually go ahead and load up a menu, like a death menu, and then let them select whether they want to restart or what you want to do. But this will suffice for the time being. So if we play this, we've only got one person in there at the moment, so if I find them, let them beat me. So that did fall over. However, it looks like it wasn't actually playing our animation. So the reason that didn't work was because I forgot one extra check, which was in my character base. I want to make sure that when we call disable movement and endgame dance, that I only do that on living players. You don't want your bodies getting up and dancing. So if the health is greater than 0, so if that's true, compile save. So we're almost there. Most of this is functional. The only thing that we need to do now is also set in the anim montage this to the full body slot. So I'm going to save that now. And from here, we should now have a fully functional build that if I die or if the other player dies, it's going to restart the level and we'll have all of the basic animation support in there. So there I am. I died. She jumped in the air. And that restarted. So now if I run around, she should be here again. I accidentally left an additional camera actor over there. We'll see her eventually. There we go. So before she died, this time I'll win. So that's it. That's all we needed for the main project. The next thing will be packaging it, and then we'll be done.